The slap came before the words. That's what I remember most, not the sting across my cheek, not the way my wine glass tipped and bled Merlot across the white tablecloth like a wound opening. I remember the silence that came first, the way Marcus's hand moved through the air with such casual violence, as if he'd done it 1,000 times before in his head and was only now making it real. The restaurant was called Vespertine. It sat on the 40th floor of a building that touched the clouds, all glass walls and low amber lighting, the kind of place where people whispered instead of talked, where every surface gleamed, where I'd felt special walking in. Marcus's hand on the small of my back, his cologne expensive, his suit perfectly tailored. Now I felt small. You embarrass me, Marcus hissed, leaning across our corner table, his voice tight and controlled. You wear that dress when I specifically told you the black one. You laugh too loud. You drink too much. Do you know who's watching us tonight? My face burned. Not from the slap, though, that throbbed, hot and sharp, but from the shame of it. The tears I refused to let fall. The knowledge that at least 3 tables had gone quiet. Their conversation suspended mid-sentence. I should have stood up, should have thrown my napkin in his face and walked out with my head high. But I'd been with Marcus for 8 months. 8 months of slowly learning that his love came with conditions, with rules, with punishments when I broke them. I'm sorry, I whispered, and hated myself for it. Marcus sat back, satisfied. He straightened his tie navy silk, probably cost more than my rent, and reached for his whiskey. You're lucky I'm patient, Isla. Other men wouldn't. Excuse me. The voice came from my left, low and quiet, but it cut through the air like a blade through silk. I turned. A man stood beside our table. He wasn't the tallest man in the room, but he felt like it. 6'2", maybe 6'3", with shoulders that filled out his black suit jacket in a way that suggested the body underneath was built for violence, not boardrooms. His hair was dark, pushed back from his face, and his jaw was carved sharp enough to draw blood. But it was his eyes that stopped me, gray, cold, and so intensely focused on Marcus that I felt the temperature drop. Can I help you? Marcus said, irritation bright in his voice. The man didn't look at Marcus. He looked at me, at the red mark blooming across my cheekbone, at my trembling hands folded in my lap, at the wine still spreading across the table like evidence. Then he looked at Marcus, and something in his expression shifted, went from cold to arctic. Stand up, the man said quietly. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. I'm sorry. Who the hell do you think? Stand. Up. This time it wasn't a request. The entire restaurant had gone silent now. I could feel eyes on us from every direction, but no one moved. No one intervened. It was as if everyone knew something I didn't, as if this man carried some invisible authority that made even the waiters step back into the shadows. Marcus's face flushed red. Listen, I don't know who you think you are, but this is a private... The man moved. One moment he was standing beside the table. The next, his hand was on Marcus's shoulder, pressing down with enough force that Marcus's knees buckled. He slammed back into his chair, eyes wide, mouth open in shock. I'm going to say this once, the man said, his voice still quiet, still controlled, but lined with something dark and patient. Apologize to her. Now, she's my girlfriend. This is none of your... The pressure on Marcus's shoulder increased. I saw him wince, saw his hand come up to try and pry the man's grip away, but it was like trying to move stone. Apologize, the man repeated. Or I'll break every bone in your hand, starting with your thumb. My heart was a drumbeat in my throat. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. This was insane. This was Marcus's voice came out strangled. I'm sorry, Isla. I'm sorry. The man released him. Marcus gasped, rubbing his shoulder, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Fear. Real, animal fear. The man turned to me then, and his expression softened just barely, just enough that I saw something almost human underneath the ice. Are you hurt? He asked. I shook my head. My voice had disappeared somewhere between the slap and this moment. He nodded once. Then he reached into his jacket. I flinched, but he only pulled out a black business card and placed it on the table in front of me. If he touches you again, the man said quietly, call me. Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. I stared at the card. Matte black with a single name embossed in silver. Dante Morelli. No title, no phone number, just a name. Marcus was on his feet now, his face purple with rage and humiliation. "Do you know who that was?" He spat. "Do you have any idea what you've just—" But I wasn't listening. I was watching Dante Morelli walk across the restaurant floor, the crowd parting for him like water around a stone, watching the maître de bow slightly as he passed, watching two men in dark suits fall into step behind him as he disappeared into the private elevator. And I was thinking about the way his eyes had looked when they met mine. Like he'd seen something in me worth protecting. Like I was already his. I didn't go home with Marcus that night. I told him I had a headache, which wasn't a lie. My skull was pounding and caught a cab from the restaurant while he stood on the sidewalk, still rattling off explanations about who Dante Morelli was, and why I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. "He's dangerous, Isla. Do you understand? The Morelli family doesn't just, they own half this city. You don't want that kind of attention." But I was already closing the cab door, the black business card burning a hole in my clutch. My apartment was in Brookhaven, a modest walk-up above a Korean bakery that filled the stairwell with the smell of red bean paste every morning. It was small, but it was mine. The only space Marcus hadn't colonized with his opinions about my furniture, my books, my life. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. I walked to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. The red mark on my cheek had deepened to a bruise, purple spreading beneath my skin like spilled ink. I touched it gingerly, and the memory of Marcus's hand connecting with my face played on loop. How many times had I excused him? How many times had I told myself he was just stressed, just protective, just passionate? I pulled out the business card. Dante Morelli. The name felt heavy in my mouth when I whispered it, like speaking it aloud might summon him. I set the card on the edge of the sink and turned on the shower, letting the water run until steam filled the room. But even as I stood under the scalding spray, I couldn't stop seeing him. The way he'd moved, controlled, economical, like violence, was a language he spoke fluently. The way his gray eyes had assessed Marcus and found him wanting in the span of a heartbeat. The way he'd looked at me after. "Are you hurt?" No one had asked me that in months, maybe years. I dried off and pulled on an oversized sweater, then sat on my bed with my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I finally typed, Dante Morelli. The search results loaded slowly, as if the internet itself was hesitant to reveal what I was asking for. Most of it was speculation, rumors, the kind of articles written in careful language by journalists who knew better than to state facts outright. Morelli crime family, alleged connections to shipping, real estate, city council. 3 rival families disappeared in the last decade. One photo appeared in several articles, a grainy shot from what looked like a charity gala. Dante, in a tuxedo, his face turned slightly away from the camera, his hand on the shoulder of an older man with white hair and cruel eyes. The caption read, Dante Morelli, 34, with his late father, Vincent Morelli. Late. I clicked deeper, found an obituary from 2 years ago. Vincent Morelli, 68, died of a heart attack, survived by his son. But the comment section of a true crime forum told a different story. Heart attack my ass. Dante took over the family business the hard way. I closed the laptop. This was insane. I should delete the card, block Marcus, start over somewhere new, somewhere clean. But I didn't. Instead, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment Dante had touched Marcus's shoulder, the quiet authority in his voice, the way the entire restaurant had held its breath. If he touches you again, call me. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it, my heart jumping. Marcus. We need to talk. Tomorrow. My place. Don't ignore me, Isla. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then I picked up the black card. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. I was a junior editor at Crescent Literary, a small publishing house that specialized in debut fiction. My desk was buried under manuscripts, red pen marks bleeding across pages like tiny wounds. My boss, Lori, took one look at my face and raised an eyebrow. Rough night? I'd covered the bruise with makeup, but apparently not well enough. Walked into a cabinet, I said. She didn't believe me. I could see it in the way her mouth thinned, in the concern that flickered across her face before she let it go. Well, we've got a new submission that came in overnight, marked urgent. It's on your desk. I nodded and buried myself in work, grateful for the distraction. But at lunch I found myself walking. Not toward the sandwich place I usually went to. Not toward the park. I walked toward the address I'd found on one of the articles last night. The one that mentioned Morelli Imports a shipping company headquartered in the financial district. I didn't plan to go inside. I just needed to see it, to make it real. The building was sleek glass and steel, 30 stories of modern architecture that reflected the clouds. A fountain dominated the plaza out front, water cascading over black marble. And standing by that fountain, checking his phone, was Dante Morelli. My breath caught. He was dressed differently than last night. Charcoal suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone. His dark hair was slightly wind-tousled, and in the daylight, I could see the faint scar that ran along his jawline. A thin white line that spoke of violence survived. I should have turned around, should have walked away. But he looked up and saw me. For 3 seconds, we just stared at each other across the plaza. His expression was unreadable, gray eyes steady, face giving nothing away. Then he pocketed his phone and started walking toward me. My pulse skyrocketed. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But I stood frozen as Dante Morelli crossed the distance between us, his footsteps deliberate, his gaze never leaving mine. He stopped 2 feet away. "Isla," he said quietly. He knew my name. Of course he knew my name. "How?" My voice came out hoarse. I cleared my throat. "How did you?" "I make it my business to know things." His eyes dropped to my cheek, where the makeup had probably faded. Something dark flickered across his face. "Did he do it again?" "No, I didn't see him." Dante nodded slowly. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone not his own, I realized. A burner, slim and silver. He held it out to me. "Take it," he said. I don't understand." "You will." His voice was soft, but it carried weight. "Keep it on you. And when you're ready to stop lying to yourself about what he is, call the only number programmed inside." I took the phone. Our fingers brushed, and electricity shot up my arm. Dante's jaw tightened. He stepped back, putting distance between us again. "Go back to work, Isla," he said, "and stay away from Marcus." Then he turned and walked into the building, leaving me standing in the plaza with a burner phone in my hand and my entire world tilting sideways. I kept the burner phone in my desk drawer for 3 days. Every time I opened it to grab a pen or stapler, I saw it there silver and silent, like a loaded gun. I'd pick it up sometimes, feel its weight, flip it open to see the single contact saved inside. D, just the letter, nothing else. I never called, but I didn't throw it away either. Marcus texted constantly. Called. Showed up at the bakery below my apartment on Wednesday night with flowers, white roses. My least favorite, but he'd never bothered to learn that. I watched him from my window, standing on the sidewalk, checking his watch like I was late for an appointment I'd never made. Eventually, he left. On Thursday, Lori called me into her office. "We've been invited to a gala," she said, sliding a cream-colored envelope across her desk. "The Waterford Foundation. They fund arts programs across the city, and they want to meet some of our authors. I need you there." I picked up the invitation. Heavy cardstock, gold embossing, Saturday night at the Grandview Hotel. "It's black tie," Lori added. "And before you say you don't have anything to wear, the company has a budget for this. Go buy a dress. Represent us well." I nodded, my mind already spinning. A gala meant crowds, safety in numbers, a reason to be somewhere Marcus couldn't corner me. I didn't let myself think about who else might be there. Saturday arrived, wrapped in early autumn rain. I'd bought a dress in deep emerald green silk that moved like water, with a neckline that dipped lower than I usually wore. The bruise on my cheek had faded to a yellow shadow, easy to cover. I wore my hair down, dark waves falling past my shoulders, and for the first time in weeks, I looked at myself in the mirror and felt something other than shame. I felt dangerous. The Grandview Hotel was old money and new power, all crystal chandeliers and marble floors. I checked my coat and stepped into the ballroom, immediately swallowed by the crowd. Women in diamonds, men in tuxedos, waiters gliding through with champagne on silver trays. I took a glass and tried to blend in. "Isla!" I turned to see Lori waving me over to a cluster of people near the string quartet. I made my way across the room, smiling, nodding, playing the part. But I felt him before I saw him. That shift in the air, that awareness that crawled up my spine like fingers trailing over bare skin. I turned. Dante Morelli stood near the bar, 20 feet away, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He wore a black tuxedo that looked like it had been tailored specifically for his body, probably had been, and his dark hair was styled back, emphasizing the sharp planes of his face. He was talking to an older man in a white dinner jacket, but his eyes were on me. Gray, unwavering, intense. My heart kicked against my ribs. He said something to the man, then set down his glass and started walking toward me. The crowd seemed to part for him without even realizing it. People stepped aside, conversations paused mid-sentence. By the time he reached me, I'd forgotten how to breathe. "Miss Reyes," he said quietly, and the sound of my last name in his voice did something to my nervous system I didn't want to examine. "Mr. Morelli." I was proud of how steady my voice came out. His eyes traced over my face, lingering on my cheek where the bruise had been. "You look well. So do you." A ghost of something amusement, satisfaction, flickered across his expression. "Dance with me." It wasn't a question. He held out his hand. I should have said no, should have made an excuse. But I set down my champagne and placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and sure, and he led me onto the dance floor as the quartet began a slow waltz. His other hand found the small of my back, and suddenly we were moving, his body leading mine with an ease that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times. "You've been avoiding the phone," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "I didn't think I needed it. Did he contact you?" I hesitated. "Yes." His hand tightened slightly on my back, and I didn't respond. We turned, and I caught sight of our reflection in one of the ballroom's gilt mirrors, him dark and controlled, me wrapped in green silk, our bodies moving together like we'd been doing this for years instead of seconds. "You shouldn't be here," Dante said suddenly. I looked up at him. "I was invited. That's not what I mean." His gray eyes held mine, and for the first time, I saw something underneath the ice, something that looked almost like concern. "This world, these people, they're not what they seem. Neither are you." His jaw tightened. "No, I'm not." "Then why did you help me?" The question hung between us, and for a long moment, he didn't answer. We just danced, the music swelling around us, the chandeliers casting fractured light across his face. "Because," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, "I know what it looks like when someone is drowning, and I've spent most of my life watching people drown without lifting a finger." His hand shifted on my back, his thumb tracing a small circle against the silk. "I didn't want to watch you drown too." My breath caught. "What makes you think you can save me?" Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Who said anything about saving? Maybe I just want to teach you how to swim." Before I could respond, someone cleared their throat beside us. A man in a gray suit, his face hard and angular, stood at the edge of the dance floor. He didn't speak, but Dante understood immediately. His expression shifted, going cold and professional again. "Excuse me," he said to me, his hands releasing me so abruptly I almost stumbled. "There's something I need to attend to." "Wait." But he was already walking away, the man in gray falling into step beside him. They disappeared through a side door marked private, and I was left standing alone on the dance floor, my skin still burning where he'd touched me. I returned to Laurie's group, my mind racing. 20 minutes later, the lights flickered. Then the screaming started. It came from the hallway beyond the private door, a woman's shriek, cut short. Then shouting, the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. The ballroom erupted into chaos. People surged toward the exits, champagne glasses shattering on marble. Security guards rushed past me, speaking urgently into radios. And God help me, I ran toward the private door. I don't know what possessed me. Curiosity. Stupidity. The burner phone heavy in my clutch. I pushed through the door into a marble hallway, and stopped. Dante stood in the center of the corridor, his tuxedo jacket discarded, his white shirt splattered with blood. 2 men lay unconscious at his feet. A third was pinned against the wall by Dante's forearm across his throat, gasping for air. "Where is she?" Dante growled. The man choked out something I couldn't hear. Dante's other hand moved, and I saw the glint of a knife, small, lethal, pressed against the man's ribs. Last chance. That's when Dante saw me. Our eyes locked, and in that moment, I saw exactly what he was. Not a savior, not a protector, a killer. The man against the wall saw Dante's attention shift and made his move twisting, pulling a gun from his jacket. I screamed. Dante moved faster than thought, the knife flashing. The gun clattered to the floor. So did the man. And I stood frozen in the doorway, watching Dante Morelli breathe hard, blood on his hands, death in his wake. He looked at me with something that might have been regret. "Run, Isla," he said quietly. "Run, and don't look back." But I couldn't move, couldn't look away, because I'd just seen the monster. And God help me, I wasn't afraid. I didn't run. I should have. Any rational person would have turned and fled, called the police, pretended they'd seen nothing. But rationality had abandoned me the moment I'd watched Dante move precise, lethal, utterly in control even as chaos erupted around him. Security guards thundered past me into the hallway. I stepped back against the wall, heart hammering, as they surrounded Dante. But they didn't arrest him. They didn't even draw weapons. They waited. "Mr. Morelli," one of them said carefully, "the situation is contained. We'll handle cleanup." Dante nodded once, wiping the knife on the unconscious man's jacket before sliding it somewhere inside his shirt. His eyes found mine across the hallway, and something unreadable passed over his face. Then he was walking toward me, blood still on his hands, his white shirt ruined, and I still couldn't move. He stopped inches away, close enough that I could smell copper and expensive cologne. "I told you to run," he said quietly. "I don't take orders well." His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he might grab me, shake me, demand to know why I was so stupid. Instead, he pulled off his cufflink silver, engraved with an M, and pressed it into my palm. "Keep this. When they question you, show it to them. Tell them you saw nothing." "Who's them?" "Police, reporters, anyone who asks." His fingers closed over mine, the cufflink trapped between our hands. "Do you understand?" "No, I don't understand any of this." "Good. Keep it that way." He released my hand and started to walk away, but I caught his wrist. His skin was warm, his pulse steady despite everything that had just happened. "Who was that woman?" I asked. "The one who screamed." Dante's expression went carefully blank. "No one you need to worry about. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." He pulled free of my grip, and something in his eyes softened barely, just for a second. "Go home, Isla. Forget you were here." Then security was escorting him away, and I was left standing in the corridor with a silver cufflink in my hand and the taste of adrenaline sharp on my tongue. The police questioned me for 40 minutes. They set up in one of the hotel's conference rooms, taking statements from everyone who'd been near the private hallway. When my turn came, a detective with tired eyes and a wedding ring asked me what I'd seen. I showed him the cufflink. His entire demeanor changed. He glanced at his partner, a younger woman with sharp cheekbones, and something passed between them. "You're free to go, Miss Reyes," he said, sliding the cufflink back across the table. "That's it?" "That's it." I walked out into the night, my head spinning. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflecting neon. I caught a cab home, watching the city blur past the window, trying to process what had just happened. Dante Morelli had killed a man. Maybe not. Killed the security guards had been checking pulses, but close enough. And the police had let him walk away. No handcuffs, no arrest. Because he owned them. Or because whatever that man had done was worse than what Dante had done to stop him. I clutched the cufflink in my fist the entire ride home. My apartment felt too quiet. I locked the door, threw the deadbolt, and stood in the kitchen with my back against the counter, still wearing the emerald dress. My hands were shaking. I pulled out the burner phone, stared at it. Then I dialed the only number inside. It rang once. "Isla." Dante's voice, rough and immediate. "I need to know what happened tonight." Silence. I could hear him breathing, could almost see him deciding how much truth to give me. "It's better if you don't." "That's not good enough anymore." My voice cracked. "You put blood on my hands the moment you gave me this phone. The moment you looked at me like I was something worth protecting. So tell me the truth, or I'm going to the police with everything I know." "You won't. Try me." Another pause. Longer this time. "There's a cafe," he said finally, "on Meridian and 5th. Be there tomorrow at noon. Come alone." "How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't." His voice dropped lower, intimate, and dangerous. "But you called me anyway." The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, the phone hot in my hand, and realized he was right. I'd already made my choice. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, watching shadows move across the ceiling, replaying the way Dante had moved in that hallway. The controlled violence. The complete absence of hesitation. This was who he was. Not the man who defended me at the restaurant. Not the one who danced with me like I was something fragile and precious. This was the truth underneath, and I was walking straight toward it. At dawn, I got up and made coffee, checked my phone. Marcus had left 7 messages, each one angrier than the last. Marcus, I know you were at the day. Grandview, I have friends there. You looked like a whore in that dress. Marcus, you're ignoring me again. This is childish, Isla. Marcus, we need to talk. Today, I'm not asking. I deleted them all. Then I opened my laptop and searched for news about the Grandview. Found a brief article. Disturbance at Charity Gala, 3 men hospitalized, no arrests made. No names. No details. Just another story buried beneath the city's surface. I closed the laptop and went to get ready. The cafe was small and tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. The kind of place that served coffee in ceramic mugs and had mismatched furniture. I arrived 10 minutes early and took a table in the back corner, my hands wrapped around a cappuccino I couldn't drink. Dante walked in at exactly noon. He'd changed dark jeans, black sweater, leather jacket, and looked nothing like the man in the blood-spattered tuxedo. But his eyes were the same, gray and unrelenting. He sat down across from me without ordering anything. "You came," he said. "You knew I would. I hoped." He leaned back, studying my face. "You have questions. 1,000 of them. Ask 3. I blinked. "Why 3? "Because that's all I'm willing to answer today." His mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close. "Choose wisely." I set down my coffee. Tried to organize the chaos in my head into something coherent. "First question," I said. "That man last night. What did he do?" "He kidnapped a girl, 16 years old, daughter of someone who works for me." Dante's voice was flat, emotionless. "We got her back. He won't take anyone else." My stomach tightened. "Second question. Why did the police let you go?" "Because some crimes don't get solved in courtrooms." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Because sometimes justice requires someone willing to get their hands dirty. That's not justice. That's revenge. Is there a difference?" I didn't have an answer for that. "Third question," I said finally. My voice barely above a whisper. "Why do you care what happens to me?" Dante went still. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Something raw and unguarded flickering behind his eyes. Then he reached across the table and took my hand. His thumb brushed over my knuckles once, twice, and electricity shot up my arm. "Because," he said quietly, "the first time I saw you, you looked at Marcus like you were still hoping he might love you the right way. And I knew that look. I've seen it in mirrors. In my mother's eyes before my father killed the hope in her." His grip tightened. "And I thought just for a second, what if someone had stepped in for her? What if someone had said enough?" My breath caught. "So you're saving me to fix your past?" "No." His eyes held mine. "I'm saving you because you deserve better than waiting for a man to stop hurting you." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire body went rigid. "What? What is it?" Dante stood abruptly. "You need to leave. Now." "Why? What's wrong?" He grabbed my arm, pulling me to my feet. "Marcus knows you're here, and he's not alone." Dante didn't give me time to argue. His hand locked around my wrist, and he pulled me through the cafe's back entrance into an alley that smelled of rain and garbage. A black car was already waiting, engine running, a driver I didn't recognize behind the wheel. "Get in," Dante said. "I'm not Isla." He turned to face me, and the urgency in his eyes stopped my protest cold. "Marcus is 3 blocks away with 2 men from the Volkov family. Do you know what that means?" I shook my head. "It means he's desperate enough to make deals with people who collect debts in blood. Now get in the fucking car." I got in. Dante slid in beside me, slamming the door as the driver pulled into traffic. I twisted to look out the back window, my heart in my throat. "Why would Marcus go to the Volkovs?" I asked. "Because you embarrassed him." Dante's voice was clipped, controlled. "Because I embarrassed him. And men like Marcus can't handle that, so they find bigger monsters to hide behind." "I don't understand. What does he want?" Dante's jaw tightened. "You, as leverage. If he can't control you, he'll make sure no one else can either." The words hit me like a physical blow. I pressed back against the leather seat, trying to process. Marcus, my Marcus, who brought me flowers and talked about our future, had gone to the Russian mob? "Where are we going?" I managed. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. We drove in silence through the city, leaving behind the familiar streets of my neighborhood. The buildings grew taller, more expensive. We crossed the river into the financial district, then beyond, until we were in a part of town I'd only ever seen in magazines. The car pulled up to a building that looked like it had been carved from steel and glass, 40 stories of modern architecture with a doorman in a suit who nodded at Dante like they were old friends. "This is your home?" I asked. "One of them." Dante opened his door. "Come on." The lobby was all polished marble and contemporary art, the kind of space that whispered wealth so loudly it didn't need to shout. We took a private elevator to the top floor, and when the doors opened, we stepped directly into a penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, minimalist furniture in blacks and grays, a kitchen that looked like it had never been used. Everything was clean, expensive, and utterly impersonal. "You'll stay here," Dante said, shrugging off his jacket, "until we figure out what Marcus is planning. I can't just hide." "You're not hiding. You're staying alive." He walked to the windows, looking out at the skyline. "The Volkovs don't make idle threats. If they've promised Marcus they'll bring you back to him, they will. Unless I make it very clear that you're under my protection." "And how do you do that?" He turned to face me, and something in his expression made my pulse skip. "By making sure everyone knows you belong to me." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. "I don't belong to anyone," I said quietly. "I know," his voice softened, "but they don't need to know that." I walked to the windows, needing distance, needing air. The city sprawled below us, tiny and vast all at once. Somewhere down there, Marcus was looking for me, and I was standing in a penthouse with a man who killed people and called it justice. "I should call my boss," I said. "Lori will worry if I don't show up Monday." "Already handled." "You're taking a leave of absence." "Family emergency." I spun to face him. You don't get to make decisions for me. I'm keeping you alive. That's the only decision that matters right now. By trapping me here, by giving you time to think, to understand what you're up against." Dante crossed the room toward me, and I stood my ground even though every instinct screamed to back away. He stopped close enough that I could see the faint lines around his eyes, the shadow of stubble along his jaw. "Marcus won't stop. The Volkovs won't stop, but I can make them think twice." "Why?" The question came out raw. "Why are you doing this?" "I told you." "No, the truth. Not the story about your mother. Not the knight in shining armor act. The real reason you're risking a war with the Volkovs over a woman you don't even know." His eyes searched mine, and I saw him weighing how much to reveal, how much truth I could handle. "You want the truth?" he said finally. "Fine. That night at Vespertine, I was there to meet with a city councilman. Boring dinner, political favors, the usual dance. And then I saw Marcus hit you." His hand came up, fingers barely brushing my cheek where the bruise had been. "And I saw you apologize for making him do it. And something in me just..." He broke off, his jaw clenching. "I've done terrible things, Isla. I've hurt people, killed people. I've built an empire on fear and blood. But I've never hit a woman, never used my strength to make someone small. And watching him do that to you, watching you accept it, like you deserved it." "I didn't accept it," I whispered. "You stayed in your seat. You didn't scream. You didn't fight back." His thumb traced my cheekbone, so gentle it made my chest ache. "And I realized you were just like my mother, trapped in a cage you'd convinced yourself was love. And I thought, not this time, not her." My breath caught. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." We stood there, inches apart, his hand still cupping my face. The moment stretched, pulled taut like a wire about to snap. Then his phone rang. Dante's expression shuddered. He stepped back, pulling the phone from his pocket. "What?" I couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but I watched Dante's face go hard. "When?" he said sharply. A pause. "How many?" Another pause. Longer this. "Time. Lock it down. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at me, and something in his eyes made my stomach drop. "What happened?" "Marcus went to your apartment." Dante's voice was carefully controlled. "He broke down your door, trashed the place, left a message on your bathroom mirror." "What did it say?" Dante hesitated. "Then, you can hide with him, but you're still mine." The words hit me like ice water. "He knows I'm with you," I whispered. "Yes." "How?" "Someone's been watching, following you. Probably since the restaurant. Dante moved toward the door, grabbing his jacket. I need to go handle this. You stay here. Don't leave. Don't answer the door for anyone. What are you going to do? He paused in the doorway, his back to me. What I'm good at, Dante. Lock the door behind me, Isla. His voice was soft, almost gentle. And try not to hate me for what comes next. Then he was gone, and I was alone in the penthouse, the city glittering below me like 1,000 watching eyes. I walked to the bathroom, the only one I'd seen so far, and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked different, sharper, like something in me had shifted. I pulled out the burner phone and stared at it. Then I opened my real phone and looked at Marcus's last message. Marcus, you think you can leave me? You think he can protect you? I'll burn his entire world down to get you back. My hands were shaking. I set both phones on the counter and walked back to the windows, watching the city breathe below. And I realized something that terrified me more than Marcus's threats, more than the Volkovs, more than anything. I didn't want Dante to leave. I wanted him to come back. Dante didn't come back for 6 hours. I spent the time exploring the penthouse like a prisoner mapping her cell. 3 bedrooms, each more sterile than the last. A library filled with books that looked unread. A wine cellar stocked with bottles that probably cost more than my rent. But no photographs, no personal touches, nothing that suggested anyone actually lived here. I found clothes in one of the closets, women's clothes, still tagged, ranging from size 4 to size 10, like someone had bought an entire wardrobe without knowing who it was for. The thought should have bothered me. Instead, I showered and changed into black leggings and an oversized cashmere sweater that smelled like expensive department stores. By the time I heard the elevator, it was past 9, and the city had transformed into a carpet of lights below. Dante stepped out, and I barely recognized him. His knuckles were split and bruised. A cut above his eyebrow had bled down the side of his face, dried now to a dark streak. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, and he moved with a slight limp that he was trying to hide. Jesus, I breathed, crossing to him. What happened? Marcus brought friends. He winced as he shrugged off his jacket. More than I expected. You need a hospital. I need a drink. He moved past me to the bar, pouring 3 fingers of whiskey into a crystal glass. He downed it in one swallow, then poured another. I watched him, my chest tight. Did you kill anyone? No. He looked at me over the rim of his glass, though I wanted to. Where's Marcus now? In the wind. But he got the message. Dante set down his glass and rolled his shoulder, grimacing. He knows if he comes near you again, I'll finish what I started. And the Volkovs? Rethinking their alliance. He touched the cut above his eyebrow, fingers coming away red. They don't like complications. And I made it very clear that you're a complication they can't afford. I grabbed a kitchen towel and ran it under cold water. Sit down. I'm fine. Sit. Down. Something in my voice made him obey. He lowered himself onto one of the bar stools, and I stepped between his knees, gently pressing the damp towel to his eyebrow. He hissed through his teeth. Hold still, I murmured. This, close. I could see the exhaustion in his face, the way his jaw was tight with pain he wouldn't admit to. The faint scar along his jawline that I'd noticed at the gala was joined by newer ones, a thin white line across his collarbone, another disappearing into his hairline. You've done this before, I said quietly. Which part, the fighting or the bleeding? Both, since I was 16. His eyes met mine, unflinching. My father believed in lessons that left marks. My hand stilled on his face. He hit you. He did worse than that. Dante's voice was flat, empty. But he also taught me how to survive, how to turn pain into power, how to make people afraid. Is that what you want? For people to be afraid of you? It's safer than the alternative, which is people thinking I'm weak. His hand came up, covering mine where it rested against his face. In my world, weakness gets you killed. I should have pulled away, should have put distance between us. But I didn't. I'm not afraid of you, I whispered. You should be. Why? Because you killed people? Because you run a criminal empire? Because you're dangerous? I shook my head. I've spent 8 months with a man who made me afraid of my own shadow, who convinced me that his anger was my fault, that his violence was love. My thumb brushed across his cheekbone, and his eyes fluttered closed. You're not him. You don't pretend to be something you're not. You don't know what I am. Then tell me." His eyes opened, and the raw honesty in them stole my breath. "I'm a monster, Isla. I've extorted politicians, burned down buildings with people inside. I've looked men in the eyes and pulled the trigger without hesitation." His hand tightened on mine. "I'm everything you should run from. And yet here I am." "Here you are," he echoed, his voice rough. The air between us shifted, thickened. His free hand came to rest on my hip, barely touching, like he was giving me the chance to pull away. I didn't. Instead, I cleaned the cut above his eyebrow, then moved to his split knuckles. His hands were large, scarred, capable of terrible things, but they were gentle when they touched me. "Why didn't you leave?" he asked suddenly. "When I told you to run at the gala, why did you stay?" I met his eyes. "Because I've spent my whole life running from difficult things, from confrontation, from truth. And I'm tired of it. Being near me isn't brave. It's stupid. Maybe it's the first honest choice I've made in years." His thumb traced slow circles on my hip, and heat pooled low in my stomach. This was dangerous. This was insane. This man had killed people tonight, had come back bleeding and brutal, and all I could think about was how his eyes had softened when he'd looked at me. "I should go," I whispered, not moving. "Yes, you should." Neither of us moved. The moment stretched, pulled taut. His eyes dropped to my mouth, and my breath caught. This was it, the edge of something irreversible. Once we crossed this line, there would be no going back. Dante. His phone rang. We both froze. He pulled it from his pocket, and I saw his expression change, saw the shutters slam down, the walls rebuild. "What?" he answered, his voice hard. I stepped back, giving him space, my heart pounding. I watched his face as he listened, saw the muscle in his jaw tick, saw his hand curl into a fist. "When?" A pause. "How long has she been missing?" Another pause. Longer. "Fuck. Okay. Lock down the house. I'll be there in 30. He hung up and looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. "What is it?" I asked. "My sister." His voice cracked on the word. "She's been taken." The world tilted. "You have a sister?" "Had." He stood abruptly, already moving toward the elevator. "I have to go. Stay here. Don't leave. Don't open the door for... I'm coming with you." "No, Dante. If someone took her because of me, because of Marcus. This isn't about you." His voice was sharp, cutting. "This is about my family. My responsibility. You stay here where it's safe." "Safe?" I laughed, the sound bitter. "You just told me Marcus is in the wind and the Volkovs are rethinking their position. Nowhere is safe. At least with you, I know what I'm dealing with." He stared at me, and I watched him war with himself. "If you come," he said finally, "you follow my orders. No questions, no arguments. Understood?" "Understood. And if things go bad, if I tell you to run, you run. You don't look back. You don't try to help. You save yourself." His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheek. "Promise me." "Dante." "Promise me, Isla." I looked into his eyes and saw the desperation there, the fear, the love for someone he was terrified of losing. "I promise," I whispered. He nodded once, then grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught our reflection in the polished steel me in borrowed clothes, him bleeding, and dangerous, our hands clasped tight. And I realized I'd just crossed that line. There was no going back now. The Morelli estate sat 20 miles outside the city, hidden behind iron gates and acres of manicured darkness. We didn't speak during the drive. Dante sat rigid beside me, his jaw clenched so tight I thought it might shatter. He'd made 3 calls short, clipped conversations in Italian that I couldn't follow but understood in the tension of his voice. His sister's name was Gianna. She was 19, a college student, and she'd been taken from a coffee shop 3 blocks from campus 2 hours ago. The gates opened before we reached them, and the driver pulled up to a mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from old-world Sicily. Stone columns, arched windows, gardens that probably bloomed in daylight but now sat wrapped in shadow. Men in suits stood at every entrance, armed and watchful. Dante was out of the car before it stopped, and I had to run to keep up with him. Inside, the house was chaos barely contained. More men, some shouting into phones, others clustered around laptops showing security footage. A woman in her 60s sat on an ornate sofa, rosary beads clutched in her hands, her face pale. Dante. She stood when she saw him, and he crossed to her immediately, folding her into his arms. Mama, I'm here. We'll find her. She pulled back, her eyes red from crying, and that's when she noticed me. Her gaze sharpened, questioning. Who is this? A friend, Dante said. She's under my protection. Isla. This is my mother, Francesca. Francesca's eyes swept over me, assessing. And I saw where Dante got his ability to read people in seconds. You brought a civilian here? Now? She's safer with me. Dante's voice left no room for argument. He turned to a man standing by the fireplace, mid-40s, military bearing, scar across his neck. Marco, what do we know? Security footage shows 3 men. Black van, plates removed. They grabbed her outside the coffee shop, used chloroform. Marco pulled up images on a tablet. Professional, clean, no witnesses willing to talk. Who? Dante's voice was deadly quiet. No demands yet, no contact. Then who the fuck took my sister? The room went silent. I stood near the wall, trying to make myself invisible, but my mind was racing. This was orchestrated, planned, which meant someone knew about Gianna, knew she was Dante's weakness. Could it be the Volkovs? Marco asked carefully. Retaliation for... No. Dante shook his head. Viktor Volkov is a lot of things, but he doesn't go after family. It breaks the code. Then who? I stepped forward before I could stop myself. Marcus. Every eye in the room turned to me. Marcus wouldn't have the resources, Dante said. But I heard the doubt in his voice. No, but he'd have the desperation. I moved closer, my heart pounding. You said it yourself, he made a deal with the Volkovs. What if he made other deals too? What if he told someone about Gianna to get leverage over you? Dante stared at me, and I watched something cold and terrible settle over his features. Stefano, he said quietly. Marco's face went white. You think he'd break the truce? For the right price? To hurt me? Dante's hands curled into fists. Yes. Who's Stefano? I asked. My cousin. Dante's voice was hollow. We split the family business 5 years ago. He runs the North Territories. I run the South. We have an agreement we don't interfere in each other's operations. We don't touch each other's blood. But if Marcus offered him information, then the agreement means nothing. Dante turned to Marco. Get everyone. Every soldier, every associate. I want Stefano's locations mapped in the next hour. If he has Gianna, I'm going to burn his entire operation to the ground. Dante. Francesca's voice cut through the room. If you start a war with Stefano, people will die. Innocent people. The police will get involved. Everything your father built. I don't give a fuck about what my father built. Dante's voice cracked with rage. He's dead. And if Stefano touched Gianna, he'll wish he was too. The room erupted into motion. Men on phones, pulling up maps, checking weapons. I stood frozen in the center of the chaos, watching Dante transform into something I'd only glimpsed before. This was the man who ran a criminal empire. This was the monster. He caught my eye across the room, and for a second, the mask slipped. I saw the fear underneath, the desperation. Then his phone buzzed. Everyone went silent. Dante looked at the screen, and his face drained of color. It's a video, he said quietly. He hit play. The footage was grainy, shot in what looked like a warehouse. Gianna sat in a metal chair, her wrists zip-tied behind her back, a gag in her mouth. Her eyes were wide with terror, mascara streaking down her cheeks. A man stepped into frame, tall, broad-shouldered, with slicked-back hair and a smile that made my skin crawl. Hello, cousin. The voice was smooth, cultured. I believe I have something of yours. Stefano. He walked behind Gianna, placing his hands on her shoulders. She flinched. I'm willing to make a trade, Stefano continued. Your sister for your territories, the ports, the shipping contracts, the political connections, all of it. You have 12 hours to decide. After that, well, he pulled out a knife, letting the blade catch the light. Let's just say Gianna's college education will be cut short. The video ended. Dante stood motionless, staring at the blank screen. We have 12 hours, Marco said. We can find her. We have contacts, informants. It's a trap. Dante's voice was flat. He wants me to come looking, wants me to walk into an ambush. So what do we do? Dante looked up, and the expression on his face made my blood run cold. We give him what he wants. You can't seriously, Francesca started. I'm not giving him the territories. Dante pocketed his phone. I'm giving him me. Marco, send a message. Tell Stefano I'll meet him. Alone. Unarmed. He lets Gianna go. I'll discuss terms. That's suicide, Marco said flatly. That's the only option. No. The word burst from my lips before I could stop it. You can't walk into that. He'll kill you. Dante's eyes found mine. Probably. Then don't go. She's my sister. And you're... I stopped, the words catching in my throat. I'm what? He crossed to me, his face inches from mine. Say it. You're all she has left. I whispered. If you die, what happens to her? To your mother? To everyone depending on you? Then I die knowing I tried to save her. His hand came up, cupping my face. You understand that, don't you? You'd do the same for someone you loved. Tears burned behind my eyes. There has to be another way. There isn't. Dante. He kissed me. It was desperate, fierce, tasting of blood and fear and goodbye. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I kissed him back with everything I had, trying to make him understand that he couldn't do this, couldn't leave me, couldn't. He pulled away, breathing hard. If I don't come back, he said quietly, Marco will take you somewhere safe. You'll be protected, provided for. You'll... Stop. I grabbed his shirt, holding him to me. Stop talking like you're already dead. I might be. Then take me with you. Absolutely not. I can help. I can be a distraction. No. His voice was steel. You stay here. You stay safe. That's not negotiable. He started to pull away. But I held on. Dante, please. Don't do this alone. He looked at me, and something in his eyes cracked. Just for a second, I saw past the armor to the terrified man underneath. I've been alone my whole life, Isla, he whispered. I don't know how to be anything else. Then he was gone, striding toward the door, Marco and half a dozen armed men following. I stood in the center of the room, watching him leave, and felt something inside me shatter. Francesca appeared at my side, her hand on my arm. He cares for you, she said quietly. Then why won't he let me help? Because the people he cares for die, mia cara. His father made sure of that. Made him watch. Made him learn that love is weakness. She squeezed my arm. But maybe you can teach him different. If he survives. If. I pulled out the burner phone, staring at it. Then I made a decision. Mrs. Morelli, I said, I need your help. Francesca led me to a room at the back of the house. It looked like an office mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls lined with books, but when she pressed a hidden panel, the bookshelf swung open to reveal an arsenal. Guns, knives, Kevlar vests. Everything neatly organized like a deadly library. My husband's collection, she said, her voice tight. Dante doesn't know I kept it. I stared at the weapons, my heart hammering. I don't know how to use any of this. Then you won't use the guns. She pulled out a vest, surprisingly light, and handed it to me. Put this on under your sweater, and take this. A small knife in a leather sheath. If someone grabs you, you aim for the throat or the femoral artery. Here. She pointed to her inner thigh. Don't hesitate. Don't think. Just cut. Mrs. Morelli, Francesca. Her eyes met mine, fierce despite the tears still wet on her cheeks. If you're going to save my son, call me Francesca. I might get him killed. He's already walking into his own execution. She pressed the knife into my hand. At least this way, he won't be alone. I found Marco in the garage, checking ammunition clips with mechanical efficiency. I need a ride, I said. He didn't look up. Dante said you stay here. Dante doesn't get to decide that. Actually, he does. This is his operation, his family, his death. I stepped closer. You know it as well as I do. Stefano won't honor any deal. The moment Dante walks in, he's dead. Marco's hands stilled. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that while Dante keeps Stefano busy being the noble sacrifice, Someone needs to actually find Gianna. We've tried. We can't locate her. Because you're looking in the wrong places. I pulled out my phone, opening the photos I'd screenshotted from the video. Look at the wall behind her. That graffiti tag, I've seen it before. Marco leaned in, squinting at the image. Where? The warehouse district, near the old textile factory on Harrison Street. There's a whole row of abandoned buildings covered in that exact tag. The artist is local, goes by Cypher. He only tags in that neighborhood. Marco's eyes widened. How do you know this? I edited a coffee table book on street art last year. Spent 3 months learning about local artists. I met his gaze. That's where she is. I'm sure of it. He studied me for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Spoke rapid Italian, then hung up. I'm sending 2 men to check it out, he said. But you're not going. Yes, I am. Dante will kill me. Only if he survives long enough to find out. I straightened my shoulders. Marco, I'm going. With or without you. But I have a better chance with you. He swore under his breath. Then he tossed me a set of keys. Black SUV. 3rd bay. You drive. I'm making calls. The warehouse district was a graveyard of industry. Hollow buildings with shattered windows. Streets cratered with potholes. The only light came from distant street lamps, casting everything in sickly orange. I drove slowly. Marco beside me on the phone, coordinating with his men who'd arrived 10 minutes before us. My hands were slick with sweat on the steering wheel. The Kevlar vest felt too tight under my sweater. 2nd building from the corner, Marco said, pointing. They found the van. Black, plates removed, abandoned. I pulled over half a block away, killing the lights. 2 of Marco's men emerged from the shadows, younger, hard-faced, moving with the same lethal grace as Dante. One of them nodded to Marco. 3rd floor. We heard voices. At least 3 men. The girl's alive. Dante? I asked. Meeting Stefano at the port in 30 minutes. Marco checked his watch. We need to move now. We approached the building in silence. My heart was a drum in my throat. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound made me flinch. The entrance was a rusted door hanging off its hinges. Inside, the smell hit me: decay, mold, something chemical that burned my nostrils. We climbed a concrete stairwell, our footsteps echoing despite our attempts at quiet. 3rd floor. Marco held up a fist, and everyone stopped. He peered around the corner, then gestured. 2 guards outside a metal door, both armed. What happened next happened fast. Marco's men moved like water, silent, efficient, brutal. A hand over a mouth, a blade across a throat. Both guards dropped without a sound. I pressed my hand to my mouth, fighting nausea. Marco caught my arm. Stay behind me. When we get inside, you grab Gianna and run. Don't wait. Don't look back. Understood? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He tested the door. Unlocked. On 3, he kicked it open. The room exploded into chaos. Gianna was zip-tied to a chair exactly like in the video, her eyes wide with terror. 2 men spun toward us, reaching for weapons. Marco's men were faster. Gunshots cracked the air, deafening in the enclosed space. 1 man dropped, the other dove behind a desk, returning fire. Marco shoved me toward Gianna. Go! I ran to her, my hands shaking as I pulled the gag from her mouth. She sobbed, gasping for air. It's okay. I'm with Dante. We're getting you out. A hand grabbed my hair, yanking me backward. I screamed, my scalp burning. A 3rd man, where had he come from? Had me in a chokehold, his arm crushing my windpipe. Drop your weapons or she dies, he shouted. Everything stopped. Marco and his men stood frozen, guns raised but unable to shoot without, hitting me. The man's arm tightened. Black spots danced across my vision. The knife. Francesca's voice in my head. Don't hesitate. Don't think. I reached down, grabbed the knife from the sheath on my thigh, and drove it backward into the man's leg. He screamed, his grip loosening. I twisted, slashed upward, felt the blade connect with flesh. He dropped. I fell to my knees, gasping, the knife slick with blood in my hand. Marco was there, pulling me up. Can you walk? I nodded, unable to speak. He cut Gianna's zip ties and she collapsed into my arms, sobbing. We need to move, one of Marco's men said. Now, before, the explosion came from below. The building shook, and I heard shouting, footsteps thundering up the stairs. Stefano's men, Marco said grimly. They knew we'd come. How many? Too many. We ran. Down the hallway, toward a back stairwell, Gianna between Marco and me. Gunfire erupted behind us, bullets tearing through walls, concrete dust raining down. We burst out, onto the second-floor fire escape just as more men poured into the building below. Climb, Marco ordered. Up. We climbed up instead of down, our hands slipping on rusted metal. Gianna was crying, her breath coming in ragged gasps, but she kept moving. We reached the roof. Nowhere left to run. I looked down at the street 4 stories below, then at Marco. Call Dante, I said. Tell him we have Gianna. He can't know we're here. If Stefano realizes, call him. Marco pulled out his phone. It rang once. Then Dante's voice, tight with controlled fury. What? We have Gianna, Marco said. Warehouse district, Harrison Street, but we're trapped. Stefano's men are, I'm 10 minutes out. The sound of an engine revving. Hold position. The line went dead. I looked at Gianna, still shaking in my arms. At Marco and his men taking defensive positions. At the door to the roof access, where we could hear footsteps getting closer. 10 minutes. We had to survive 10 minutes. The door burst open. 5 men poured onto the roof, weapons raised. And at the center of them, smiling like a predator, was Stefano. Well, he said, his eyes landing on Gianna, then on me. This is unexpected. My cousin's sister and his new pet. Dante's going to be devastated when I send him both your heads. He raised his gun. Marco stepped in front of me, and the night exploded into violence. The first gunshot went wide. Marco returned fire, and one of Stefano's men dropped. Then the rooftop became a war zone, muzzle flashes in the darkness, the crack of bullets against concrete, Gianna's screams mixing with the chaos. I pulled her behind an air conditioning unit, my body covering hers, the knife still clutched in my bloody hand. My ears rang. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought they might break. Stay down, I whispered into her hair. Just stay down. Marco and his men were outnumbered. I watched one of them take a bullet to the shoulder, spin, and keep firing. Watched Marco reload with practiced efficiency, his face a mask of concentration. Stefano stood at the back, directing his men with hand signals, never putting himself in the line of fire. Coward. Another of Marco's men went down. We were losing. Then I heard it, the roar of an engine, tires screeching, car doors slamming, footsteps pounding up the stairwell. The rooftop door exploded open again, and Dante came through like an avenging angel. He moved with lethal precision, 2 shots, 2 bodies dropping. A third man turned toward him, and Dante closed the distance in 3 strides, breaking the man's arm before taking his weapon and using it against another attacker. It was brutal, efficient, beautiful in its violence. Within 30 seconds, only Stefano remained standing. Dante's gun was pointed at his cousin's head. Where's Gianna? Dante's voice was death itself. Dante! I called out, standing up from behind the air conditioning unit. He turned, and the expression that crossed his face, relief, rage, fear nearly broke me. Gianna ran to him, and he caught her with one arm, never lowering his weapon. She buried her face in his chest, sobbing, and I saw his jaw clench, saw him fighting to stay in control. You brought her here? His eyes locked on mine. I told you to stay at the house. And I told you I don't take orders well. You could have been killed, but I wasn't. I stepped forward, the knife still in my hand, Stefano's man's blood still wet on the blade. We found her. We got her out. By putting yourself in danger, while you walked into a trap, my voice cracked. You were going to trade yourself for her. Die for her. And what about the rest of us? What about your mother, your family? The people who need you alive? She's my sister, and you're the only thing standing between them and chaos. I was shaking now, adrenaline and fear and something deeper flooding through me. You don't get to martyr yourself because you think you're the only one who can make sacrifices. Dante stared at me, his gun still trained on Stefano, his sister still clutched against his side. Touching, Stefano said, laughing. You found yourself a little fighter, cousin. Does she know what you really are? What you've done? Shut up, Dante said quietly. Does she know about the Delgado family? The ones you burned alive in their restaurant because they wouldn't pay protection? Stefano's smile was vicious. Or what about that journalist who got too close to the truth? The one they found in the river? I said, shut up. She's looking at you like you're a hero, Dante. Like you're savable. It's almost sad. Dante's finger tightened on the trigger. Don't, I said. His eyes cut to me. He tried to kill my sister. I know. He would have sent me her body in pieces. I know. I moved closer, carefully, like approaching a wild animal. But if you kill him here, like this, you start a war. His men will retaliate. More people will die. Innocent people. I don't care. Yes, you do. I was close enough now to touch him. You care more than you want to admit. That's why you protect people. Why you stepped in when Marcus hit me. Why you're terrified of losing the people you love. Love makes you weak, Dante said, but his voice wavered. No, love makes you human. We stood there, the gun between us, the night air cold and thick with gunpowder. Around us, Marco was checking his wounded men. Gianna had stopped crying, watching her brother with wide eyes. Let the police have him, I said quietly. You have enough evidence to put him away forever. Let the system do what it's supposed to do. The system is broken. Then fix it. You have politicians in your pocket, judges who owe you favors. Use them. Be better than him. Stefano laughed. You really think he can change? He's his father's son, Vincent Morelli's monster. He'll never be. Dante pistol whipped him across the face. Stefano dropped, unconscious before he hit the ground. Marco, Dante said, his voice steady again. Call our friends in the police department. Tell them we have Stefano Morelli on kidnapping charges. Bring the evidence we collected on his trafficking operation. Make sure it sticks. Marco nodded, already on the phone. Dante lowered his gun and turned to me. His free hand came up, cupping my face, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. You're covered in blood, he said softly. So are you. Are you hurt? No. The lie came automatically, but he saw through it. His eyes dropped to my throat, where bruises were already forming from where I'd been choked. His expression darkened. Who? He's dead. Did you? Yes. My voice was barely a whisper. I killed him, with the knife your mother gave me. Something shifted in Dante's eyes. Not horror, not judgment, understanding. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about it, really thought about it. Alive. For the first time in a long time, I feel alive. He pulled me, against him, his lips finding mine in a kiss that tasted of desperation and relief and something deeper. I kissed him back, not caring that we were both covered in blood, that his sister was watching, that Marco and his men were loading Stefano into a van. Nothing mattered except this, his hands in my hair, his heart pounding against mine, the way he held me like I was the only solid thing in a world that kept trying to tear him apart. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. You didn't stay safe, he murmured. No. You disobeyed a direct order. Yes. You put yourself in danger for my family. I did. His hands tightened on my waist. Why? The question hung between us, loaded with everything we hadn't said. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Because somewhere between you defending me at that restaurant and you kissing me goodbye tonight, I stopped being afraid of what you are, and started being terrified of losing who you could become. His breath caught. Isla, I'm not asking you to be perfect, Dante. I'm not asking you to stop being dangerous or powerful or any of the things that make you who you are. I pressed my hand over his heart. I'm just asking you to let me stand beside you while you figure out what comes next. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he took my hand and brought it to his lips, pressing a kiss against my blood-stained knuckles. I don't know how to do this, he whispered. How to be with someone without destroying them. Then we'll figure it out together. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. We need to go, Marco called out. Dante nodded but didn't release me. Come home with me, he said. My real home, not the penthouse. The house where I grew up, where Gianna and my mother live, where my father's ghost still haunts every hallway. His gray eyes held mine. I want you to see all of it, the good and the broken, and then decide if you can handle what loving me actually means. My heart stuttered. Loving you? Isn't that what this is? The truth sat between us, terrifying and inevitable. Yes, I breathed. I think it is. He kissed me again, softer this time, and when we pulled apart, Gianna was smiling through her tears. She's brave, Gianna said to her brother. Don't screw this up. Dante laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. I'll try not to. We climbed down from the roof as police cars flooded the street below, their lights painting everything red and blue. Dante kept his hand on the small of my back, guiding me, protecting me, even now. As we reached the ground floor, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You took something from me. I'll take everything from you. M. Marcus." I showed it to Dante, and his expression went cold. "He's not going to stop," I said. "I know." Dante pulled me closer. "But neither am I." Marcus came for me 3 days later. 3 days of living in the Morelli estate, learning its rhythms. Morning espresso with Francesca in the garden. Evenings with Gianna, who taught me Italian curse words and showed me her college essays. Nights with Dante in his childhood bedroom, talking until dawn about everything and nothing, his scars, my dreams, the impossible future we were trying to build. 3 days of almost believing we were safe. I was in the library when the shooting started. The first gunshot shattered a window in the east wing. I dropped the book I'd been reading, my heart lurching. Then more shots, rapid, coordinated, the sound of an assault. Dante burst through the door, already moving. "Basement, now." "What's happening?" Marcus brought an army. He grabbed my hand, pulling me into the hallway. He hired mercenaries. Former military. They breached the perimeter. We ran through corridors I'd only begun to learn, Dante shouting orders into his phone. Behind us, I heard windows breaking, doors splintering. The house was under siege. The basement was concrete and steel, built like a bunker. Francesca was already there with Gianna, both pale but composed. Marco and a dozen armed men took defensive positions. "How many?" Marco asked. 20, maybe more. Dante checked his weapon. "They have military-grade equipment. Someone bankrolled this. The Volkovs? Probably. Marcus gave them something they wanted. Information, access, maybe both." I felt sick. This was my fault. If I'd never gone to that restaurant, never caught Dante's attention. "Stop." Dante's hand cupped my face, forcing me to look at him. "I can see you blaming yourself. Don't. But Marcus is here because of me. Marcus is here because he's a narcissistic sociopath who can't handle rejection." His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "This was always going to happen. Better here, where we're prepared, than somewhere else." An explosion rocked the house. Dust rained from the ceiling. "They're using grenades," one of Marco's men reported, "trying to flush us out." "Let them try." Dante released me and turned to his men. "Switch to Protocol 7. Give them the first 2 floors. Fall back to the reinforced positions. Make them work for every inch." The men moved with precision born of training. This wasn't their first siege. Dante pulled Marco aside, their voices low. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw Marco's face change, saw him shake his head, argue, then finally nod in grim acceptance. "What's Protocol 7? I asked when Dante returned. "Controlled retreat. We give them what they think they want while protecting what matters." He took my hand. "I need you to promise me something. Dante. Promise me that if I tell you to go, you'll take Gianna and my mother through the tunnel in the wine cellar. It leads to a safe house 2 miles from here. Marco will go with you." "No, I'm not leaving you." "Isla, you said you wanted me to stand beside you. That means I don't run when things get hard." His jaw clenched. "This isn't about running. It's about surviving. Then we survive together or not at all." Before he could argue, his phone rang. He answered it, listened, and his expression went deadly. "Put him on speaker." Marcus's voice filled the basement. "Hello, Isla. Miss me?" My blood turned to ice. "I know you're listening, sweetheart. And I know you're hiding in Morelli's little fortress, playing house with a murderer." His laugh was sharp, brittle. "Did he tell you what he really is? How many people he's killed? How many lives he's destroyed?" "He told me everything," I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at my throat. "And you stayed? God, you're even more pathetic than I thought." The venom in his voice was acid. "You were supposed to be mine, Isla. I chose you. I shaped you. And you repay me by spreading your legs for some Mafia thug?" Dante's hand tightened on his weapon. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus continued. "You're going to walk out that front door, alone, and you're going to come back to me. If you do, I'll call off my men. The Morellis live. Everyone goes home happy. And if I don't, then I burn this place to the ground with everyone inside, starting with his baby sister. Gianna whimpered. Francesca pulled her closer. You have 5 minutes, Marcus said. Choose wisely. The line went dead. Silence filled the basement. Then everyone started talking at once, Marco arguing strategy, his men suggesting counterattacks, Francesca praying softly in Italian. But I only heard Dante's breathing beside me, felt the tension radiating from his body. I have to go, I said quietly. No, Dante, if I don't, then we fight. We fought worse odds. He has 20 trained mercenaries with military weapons. How many men do you have here? 15? 20? How many will die if I don't walk out that door? His eyes met mine, and I saw the war raging behind them. The man who'd built an empire on ruthless calculation fighting against the Timon, man who'd kissed me like I was Heir. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for us, he said. And I won't let you sacrifice your family for me. I took his hands in mine. You said love makes you human. Let me be human too. Let me make this choice. Isla, I'm not walking out there to die. I glanced at Marco. But I am walking out there to buy you time. 10 minutes. That's all you need to get Gianna and your mother to safety. Then you come for me. Understanding flickered across Dante's face. That's insane. No, that's love. I pulled him down, kissing him hard and fast. 10 minutes. Then you paint this whole goddamn property red. Understand? He stared at me, and something shifted in his expression, respect mixing with fear, mixing with something that looked like pride. Marco, he said, not taking his eyes off me. Get my mother and Gianna to the tunnel. Full escort. Move now. As they filed out, Dante pulled me against him one last time. If he touches you, he won't have time. I pressed the knife Francesca had given me into his hand. But just in case, I want you to have this. As a promise. I'm coming back to you, Isla. 10 minutes, Dante. Then show Marcus why people fear the name Morelli. I walked toward the stairs before I could lose my nerve. Behind me, I heard Dante's voice, rough with emotion. I love you. I didn't turn around. If I did, I'd never leave. I know, I whispered. I love you too. The front door hung off its hinges. I stepped through into chaos, broken furniture, bullet holes in the walls, blood on the marble floors. The house my love had grown up in, torn apart. Marcus stood in the center of the foyer, surrounded by armed men in tactical gear. He looked different than I remembered, thinner, his eyes fever bright, his expensive suit rumpled like he'd been sleeping in it. There she is, he said, smiling. My prodigal girlfriend. I'm not your girlfriend. Details. He gestured to his men. Take her. 2 mercenaries moved toward me. I didn't resist as they grabbed my arms, didn't fight as they zip-tied my wrists. Marcus walked closer, his hand coming up to caress my face. I fought every instinct not to flinch. Did you really think you could leave me? He whispered. Did you really think I'd let you go? Yes, I said clearly. Because you never had me. Not really. I was just something you wanted to own. His hand cracked across my face. The old me would have apologized, would have made excuses for his anger. The new me just smiled. Is that all you've got? Rage flooded his features. He raised his hand again, and the world exploded. Windows shattered as Dante's men poured in from every direction. The mercenaries spun, returning fire, but they were surrounded, outnumbered. Dante had called in reinforcements. In the chaos, I dropped to the floor, rolling toward cover. A bullet struck the mercenary who'd been holding me. He fell, and I grabbed his knife, cutting through my zip ties. I looked up, to find Marcus. But he was already running, fleeing toward the back of the house like the coward he'd always been. I ran after him, through the dining room, the kitchen, out into the gardens. He was fast, but fear made me faster. I caught him at the gate, tackling him to the ground. We struggled, his hands clawing at my face, my arms. But I was done being his victim. I pinned him down, the knife pressed against his throat. Give me one reason, I said, breathing hard. One reason I shouldn't end this right now. Because you're not like them, he gasped. You're not a killer. You're sweet, gentle Isla who edits books and apologizes too much. That Isla died the night you hit her. I pressed the knife harder, and a thin line of blood appeared on his skin. Behind me, footsteps, Dante's voice. Isla. I looked up. He stood there, gun in hand, his men securing the perimeter. The siege was over. We'd won. Let me. Dante said quietly, but I shook my head. No, this is mine. I looked down at Marcus, at the fear in his eyes, and realized something. I didn't need to kill him. I just needed to stop letting him define me. I stood up, stepping back. He's all yours, but I want him prosecuted. Publicly. For everything he's done. Dante nodded. His men hauled Marcus away, still shouting threats that no one was listening to anymore. Then Dante pulled me into his arms, and I finally let myself break sobbing against his chest, releasing all the fear and adrenaline and grief. You came back, he murmured into my hair. I promised I would. You scared the hell out of me. Good, now you know how I felt. He laughed, and the sound was broken and beautiful. Around us, the sun was rising, painting the ruined gardens in shades of gold and pink. The house would need repairs. The business would need restructuring. Marcus and the Volkovs would need handling. But right now, in this moment, we were alive, together, and that was enough. Epilogue. 6 months later, the publishing. House was small but mine. Morelli and Reyes Literary Press. The sign had gone up last week, elegant black letters on frosted glass. Dante had insisted on the partnership. You have the expertise, he'd said. I have the capital. Why not build something legitimate together? So we had. I edited. He handled business. We published authors who deserved a chance, debut writers, diverse voices, stories that mattered. It wasn't the life I'd imagined. But it was better. The penthouse was ours now, filled with books and photographs and evidence of actual living. Gianna visited on weekends. Francesca hosted Sunday dinners. And Dante? Dante was learning to be something other than his father's monster. He still ran parts of the family business, the legitimate parts, mostly. The shipping, the real estate, the political connections he was slowly using to reform from the inside. It wasn't perfect. Some nights I still woke to find him gone, handling situations I didn't ask about. Some mornings he came home with new bruises, new scars to add to his collection. But he always came home, and every time he did, he chose me again. Ready? He asked now, appearing in my office doorway. I saved my manuscript and stood. Where are we going? It's a surprise. I hate surprises. I know. He grinned, and God, I loved that smile. But you'll love this one. He was right. He took me to the restaurant where we'd met, Vespertine. But instead of going inside, we rode the elevator past the restaurant to the rooftop garden I'd never known existed. It was strung with lights, filled with flowers, impossibly romantic. Dante, what? He dropped to one knee. My heart stopped. 6 months ago, he said, pulling out a ring. You walked into my life and refused to leave, even when I gave you every reason to run. You saw the monster and decided to love the man. You stood beside me when I didn't deserve it. You taught me that love isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing I've ever felt. His voice cracked. Isla Reyes, will you marry me? I looked down at him, this beautiful, broken, dangerous man who'd saved me by letting me save myself. Yes, I whispered. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on my finger and stood, pulling me into a kiss that tasted like promise and future and home. When we finally broke apart, the city glittered below us. Ours to protect. Ours to change. Ours to love. I love you, I said. I love you too. He kissed my forehead. My fierce, stubborn, impossible woman. Your wife, I corrected. My wife, he agreed. And somewhere below, in the restaurant where our story had begun with violence, we started writing our ending in something sweeter. Love.